My guest is Regina Boyd, and she is a dear friend of mine. She's a marriage and family therapist, and today we're going to be talking about raising emotionally healthy Catholic kids. So if you are a parent and you are looking for information on just how good tools to be able to provide your children with emotional health, this is the podcast for you. I hope you will join us today, and I'm going to go ahead and let Regina introduce herself. Go ahead, Regina.
Hi, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I have a therapy practice here in Orlando, Florida, where we work with couples, individuals, children, and families. And we work with people from all types of concerns and situations, ranging from infidelity to anxiety to trauma. But it's really a joy. I really enjoy getting to kind of have that front row seat to watching healing happen and everything unfold right in front of you. The people I work with are the strongest people I know. So it's such a privilege and an honor. And so I'm so happy to be chatting with you today, Cassandra.
Awesome. Thank you, Regina. We go back way back to college
Yeah.
days. So we've known each other many years and just grateful to have you on my podcast. So if we just kind of zoom out before we talk about tips for parents, if you could just give a diagnosis of culture today in 2025 and what you believe parents are facing in terms of raising their children, challenges, emotionally, just on any front that you would like to address. Can you give like a landscape of what you believe are the challenges today?
I think one of the biggest things for parents, especially, but also for anyone in general, I think stress is huge. I think we're at an all-time high for stress and anxiety. It just seems that, especially after COVID, it just seems to have grown leaps and bounds, in my opinion. And so it's really hard to think clearly as a parent or as an individual when we're kind of being bogged down by these stresses and anxieties of day-to-day life. Everyone knows technology is a big one as well. And thankfully, there's so much more research coming out now that we've had these newer advances with smartphones and whatnot. They're now at a point long enough where we've had time to study them
Hmm.
and see the long-term effects. So some of those studies are finally starting to come out, which I think is going to be really helpful to parents in the future. But yeah, I would say stress, financial hardships, I think is a big one. People are feeling that strain on their pockets lately in recent days. And so all of those play a big role when you think about raising a family, providing for a family and for kids. All of those things impact decisions like what kind of activities do I put my children in? Can we afford this vacation? And just making sure, is my child healthy in general? All of those things really play a big role, I would say.
Hmm. And if we could get just a little bit more specific about, you did touch on things about stress, but why do you think post-COVID has changed that? And then also honing in on technology, what specifically would you say are the stressors that are associated with technology?
I think the problem with technology, there's nothing wrong with technology inherently, right? It's a great to have these conveniences at our fingertips. We can, for example, we're on this Zoom call right now, recording
Mhm.
this podcast, and we can be in any part of the world and still communicate with friends and family far away and be in touch with people. It's a beautiful thing. I think there's a lot of side effects that are unintended, where we get these dopamine hits from being online and social media. All the people who market to us on these platforms know exactly what they're doing. They know how to craft the platform in such a way that it gives us those dopamine. So our receptors are going off constantly when we're on our phones scrolling. And so it makes it harder to put the devices away and to put them down because they
Hmm.
are feeding us. And so sometimes we are unconsciously spending more time than we actually are aware or want to be. And therefore, that makes us less available, right? Less available to our friends, to our family, to our kids when they need something. And then, therefore, when you think about a cycle of addiction, it's kind of like it feeds itself
Hmm.
because when somebody uses some type of substance, you need more of that thing to get the high the next time. And so That's why we see people suffer from addiction after a while because they end up consuming so much amount of that drug, whatever it is, that it becomes harmful to them.
Hmm.
And so that's the same with social media use, unfortunately, or device use in general, is we don't realize that we need more of it in order to feel calmed or relaxed or whatever it is that we're seeking in that time. And so I think that adds to stress for young people because they're getting trapped in that comparison game. I think adults get trapped in that comparison game because we see people's nice trips or we see people's wonderful life in the highlight reel, but it's really hard to not compare ourselves when we see all of those things. But then again, it's taking time away. We're not socializing with one another the same way we used to, even 5 years ago. And so I really think that plays an unintentional role without us realizing. It takes away more time, even though we have these abilities to connect, it takes away time from the people within our vicinity.
Right.
So it compounds itself.
Yeah, so it's like multiple layers to it. It's the time that's spent. It's the addictive nature of it. It's the pressure of the influencers, the marketing, and the pressures that a person then feels about their own lives, comparing it, and how that then can make somebody feel. So it's like multiple layers. What specifically would you say about kids like that I know you kind of breezed on it, but anything else you would add to that about how, especially in formative years, things like social media, technology, how all of that is impacting children?
Yeah, so there's a new study that came out recently where it is talking about if someone gives a child a smartphone before the age of 10, I believe it is, or maybe 12,
Hmm.
somewhere around there, 10 to 12, they are more likely to experience mental health concerns later on in life
Mm.
as an adult.
Hmm.
So, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, those increase for children who are given smartphone devices at that early age. And it's so impactful for that age and stage of development because think about it, in that early adolescent stage, our friends are so important to us. We're trying to define who we are, figure out who we are in relation to other people. Am I a jock? Am I a prim and proper girl? Who am I in this
Hmm.
world? And not only that, um, there's so many conversations happening online with our young people in their group chats and on social media. A lot of parents don't realize a lot these social medias can see locations of people as well.
Hmm.
So kids can log in to Snapchat or wherever and see that all of their friends' locations happen to be together while they're at home. So they can see in real time when they're being left out of something, when they
Mm.
weren't invited to an event. If there's any bullying that happens, that can happen 24/7 now, as opposed to back in the day when you would leave your bully at school and go home and be with your family and get some reprieve
Hmm.
for a few hours. But that person can still taunt you online if they want to. And so there's a lot of things, filters, right? So imagine these 12, 13-year-old girls seeing people online with distorted images of what reality looks like and what beauty is. And so there's just so many things that impact that sense of self as they're developing. What is important? What do I value? Who am I in the world? And why don't I look like this person? Why don't I have what they
Hmm.
have?
Hmm.
Because they're so young, they don't have the full adult logical reasoning that we do to be able to say, oh, well, those things don't matter. But to
Hmm.
a 12-year-old, they matter. They're huge. And
Hmm.
at their stage of development, they don't have the ability to think through those things all the way, let alone safety concerns and all of those other things about talking to a predator online and giving out personal information, meeting up with people.
Hmm.
So there's just so many things developmentally that really impact a child psychologically, again, unintentionally, because we didn't know until now that these studies are coming out, that are just really hindering their confidence moving about the world.
Yeah. And then so you definitely are focusing on the more like preteen kids, but what about the young people that are being handed iPads very young to
Mhm,
be playing
mhm,
games on?
mhm,
Many kids who are playing all day on their iPads, games, video games, things like that. What are your thoughts about all of that developmentally, how that's impacting kids, your thoughts on what you believe are appropriate ages and how to handle some of those things?
Yeah, it's all about time. So the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no TV, like television show on a TV, let alone an iPad, until a child is about 2 or 3 years old.
Hmm.
And so we already know that that's been established for a long time, that it's not recommended. So TV at 3 years old, not a personal iPad, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a difference there in that, um, again, the exposure, but I think there's something with socialization that we're really forgetting about, of getting to interact with people, picking up those on those nonverbal cues. And this, I'm
Hmm.
talking about an extended period of time where somebody's spending hours and hours on an iPad or in front of the TV. You
Hmm.
miss out on those moments of seeing what your mom or dad smile slightly in delight when you walk into the room, or getting to that little negative vibe if you're about to touch something that is dangerous, right? There's
Hmm.
just so many things, that subtle nonverbal cues that we pick up on one another, that are really important for young children to learn the socialization, so that when they're in school, they have the ability to kind of adapt to other people around them. I think that was a big concern during the pandemic as well, when we were wearing masks. How does an infant know that their parent is smiling at them or
Hmm.
happy, because they can't see those changes in facial expression that are all really important? Locking eyes with
Hmm.
someone. So if my eyes are on a device rather than with
Hmm.
a person, there's a lot that we miss and don't realize are really important until it's not there, of course.
Hmm.
It also helps a lot with emotional regulation when we can have time away from those devices. So you might see kids more like temperamental when they spend a lot of time on those devices, because again, they're getting that dopamine rush as well. And so it's really tempting as a parent sometimes to just say, "Oh, here, this works. It makes them be quiet. I get a break." And but remembering to balance that out with letting them have those opportunities to work through the challenges of emotions as well, because we all need to be able to do that at some point. We all need
Hmm.
to be fully functioning adults in the world, not throwing tantrums, right, when something doesn't go our way. And so it starts early, of us learning how to do those things.
Yeah, those are really good tips. So, if we could zoom out a little bit and somebody was thinking about establishing their family and creating a healthy environment to raise a child, what would you say are essentials to making sure that a child has an emotionally healthy, stable home?
Unconditional love is a big one.
Hmm.
Are we able to just love someone for who they are, and again, delight in them and their presence? Are you creating an environment where your home is a home base for that kid? They go out into the world, maybe get beat up a little bit, somebody teases them, says something mean. Can they come home to someone who's going to comfort them, encourage them, let them know they're accepted no matter what, their shirt looks like or
Hmm.
whatever it is? And I would say, in vain with that, also fostering some independence as well. We want them
Hmm.
to learn that they have the ability to do things on their own, that we don't always do everything for them, but you do that with encouraging and coaching and confidence. We don't have to let our children flounder to learn. We can be guides to them. And then I would say, again, that emotional regulation piece and socialization is huge. I would say we've probably all encountered a person at some point in our life that could be extremely intelligent, intellectually, could be
Hmm.
really skilled at a task, but if they lack a certain ability to interact and socialize with people well and get along with people,
Hmm.
they really struggle in the workplace, in maintaining jobs or maintaining long-term friendships or romantic relationships. And so I would say that would serve you well, to focus on, can my child kind of be a generally well socialized person, understanding when feelings get hurt, understanding manners and being polite. And again, I think we just kind of assume that that's something everybody does, but if you really think about it, it's not necessarily the case. And those can be
Hmm.
things that really serve our children well. Obviously, some type of spiritual element is helpful as well for mental,
Hmm.
emotional well-being. Um, so yeah, I would say those are the big ones. Just unconditional love, guiding, coaching, independence, and socialization.
Yeah. And then any thoughts, Regina, as well, on just the importance of rituals, traditions, and routines in
Mm.
creating stability in a home and predictability and discipline, like just maybe anything that you want to share about that as well?
Yeah, routine is huge, I would say, for any age, but especially younger children. We want to be consistent in our routine. So everyone, when your children are really, really little, we have schedules around nap time and lunchtime and bedtime. But I think it's really important when we have those healthy boundaries around our schedules
Hmm.
because kids feel safe. They know what to expect. It's consistent. There's an expectation there. And it really helps them kind of be able to move about their day because they have these touch points throughout the day to say, okay, it's lunchtime, which means the rest of the day is probably going to go like this now because it's what, I get playtime and then eventually dinner and bath and bed, right? They kind of know what to expect. And there's something about a routine that just gives that sense of safety and stability. And um, sometimes people aren't always fond of that because they think it's confining and I'm really controlling and regulating my kids, but they really do need that sense of structure
Hmm.
and that structure to be consistent over time. So as your kids get older and they're doing homework, do we have an expectation to, you come home after school and you have your snack time, but then straight to homework, right? We don't have fun first before we do homework, and just putting in those little senses of routine again are going to help them be able to regulate more when things feel overwhelming and I can't handle it. It's sometimes
Hmm.
really nice to have a reliable schedule to fall back on that I can just get into. It's like actually a lot of advice I give when somebody's going through something really intense or a traumatic event in their life. Maybe they lost a loved one or something like that, is stick to your normal routine as much as possible
Hmm.
because that's again a be part of helping you get back to a sense of normalcy and feeling safe and feeling like you are capable even in this really tragic time.
Hmm.
And so it's the same thing with kids. They have those ups and downs throughout their life. They don't know, we don't always know what might have been said to them at school during the day that was hurtful. And so it's really helpful when we have that resting place for them to land on in the stability of the schedule and the home environment.
Yeah, I've seen people, who had stable homes, parents that got along very well, conflict resolution was handled very well. Just there was routines, traditions, predictability, safety, uh, adjust very well into adulthood, and then people that didn't have those things, even divorced, but even just if they had a home that was very chaotic,
Mm.
it's been much harder for them to adjust into adulthood, not to mention what those people bring into their own marriage, or if they join religious life, they become priests, they bring all of that baggage with them if they haven't dealt with it. So it's like thinking about forming these little human beings is like a way that we're able to set them up for success for the rest of their lives as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So if you were giving advice, let's say you were going to give a talk to parents of small children and you were going to tell them some things that you think are, I know we just talked about like traditions, rituals, and routines, but anything else that you would add to, what would you give to small children, tips, coaching to parents who are raising small children versus parents who are raising preteens and teens, since somebody that's watching this podcast could be at any point of that. So, any wisdom that you would like to pass on or tips that you would like that you think would be really helpful for parents to know?
Yeah, I would say in the younger years, we really want to be aware of attachment. And basically, what attachment means is helping a young child know who I am in the world. And that really starts with us as parents because
Hmm.
you're the first person in their world of what does that mean to be me in the world. So when infants are infants, they don't really understand themselves apart from their parent, particularly the mother and the caregiver. But as they grow into a toddler, and a preschool age, they realize, oh, I am my own autonomous being and I can have and do things apart from my parent. And so it's really important to have that healthy attachment dynamic, meaning are we responsive when our child cries in the middle of the night? Are we, and how often do we get that correct? It doesn't have to be correct 100% of the time, but do I know the difference between that, diaper change cry, the food cry, the cold cry, whatever it is? And am I more or less responding in a timely manner? I'm not letting that cry happen for an hour. I'm getting
Hmm.
within there within a couple of minutes and attending to whatever it is. All of those things teach a child about, oh, okay, I'm safe in the world and I can express a need and someone will come and respond when I have that need. As opposed to learning, I'm crying, I'm expressing this need, nobody's coming, nobody's there for me. The world is not a safe place.
Hmm.
And so in those younger years, we really want to pay attention to that of just being present, spending quality time, playing with them, letting them know that there's people that are there for me in the world and to expect that that's healthy and normal, right? And because otherwise they grow up thinking that it's okay to be neglected and sort of left behind.
Hmm.
Um, and then I would say maybe developing language around emotions and feelings. Oh, I can see, if they throw something at they're 3 years old, they're angry and they throw, I see you're really angry right now. Or, oh, you went in your room and closed the door. You're pretty upset. Just giving language to that because again, we might be feeling those things, but as a young person, are we even aware of how to put a word to that or identify what that is? And I think that's really helpful because it can, one, let them know that you're in tune with them, that you care enough to acknowledge it, but also, two, to give them some awareness of, oh, wow, yeah, I guess I am pretty angry right now. What should I do about that? And how
Hmm.
do I get out of this? Do you need a hug? Do you need some space? Whatever it is. So I would say, and along with what we were saying before, that consistency, the routine, the structures are all going to be really important for a young child.
Yeah. And then did you want to touch on the preteen teen
Yeah, yeah,
age?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So preteens are an interesting stage because we're transitioning into that. I'm older, I'm bigger, more independent. So I would say getting ready for a lot more dialogue and explanation. What's great
Mhm.
about the preteen age is there's a lot more cognitive ability and reasoning happening. And so you have the ability to explain more complex situations and ask for someone's opinion. So this is kind of the time where you get to have some more fun moral conversations about what's right and what's wrong and what do you think about this? What do you think is right or wrong in this situation? And that's going to serve you really well in the adolescent years because if we can set that up in the preteen stage where they're still willing to take your influence a lot more easily, um, you're opening the door to more important conversations when they have more serious concerns happening in those teenage years.
Mhm.
So I think really including them in conversations beyond just, oh, how was school? What did you do today? But actually having some real conversations about real topics and letting them share their opinions with you as opposed to you giving the answer, I think is going to be really healthy and huge because in those teenage years when mom and dad aren't cool anymore, when they don't really have time to hang out with you, that their whole world is their friends, we want that good foundation there for them to know that you are available when they do actually feel like they really need you.
Mhm.
I had a friend actually who was working for a while and then decided she wanted to go back to being a stay-at-home mom when her children were teens
Mhm.
because she realized, oh, they actually do need me, even though they stay up in their rooms
Mhm.
all of the time. She just sort of learned that I need to be available. I need to be around and in the house. And because she never knows when that time is where they're going to randomly come down the stairs at 9:30 at night and say, "Hey, mom, what would you do in this situation?" So she's like, I've just learned that I need to just be around. I don't
Mhm.
have to like talk to them and say, "Hey, what's going on in your life?" But if I'm around, they will come and find me when they need me. And that's what I think is really important is to still have that emotional connection, obviously have fun and through all the stages, making sure there's time for connection and bonding, getting involved in whatever they enjoy being involved in. But I think when we lay that foundation in those preteen years, it really helps in the teenage years for them to know, oh wow, mom or dad will actually hear me out and let me talk through this serious situation happening with my friend. And they're not going to freak out and panic because they already know from those preteen years that you've established that. And then I
Hmm.
would say maintaining those consistent traditions, right? If you have dinner at the family table every night, trying to keep that as much as possible. I know it's hard when people have activities, but if we can still keep a couple nights a week where we're having dinner together as a family, I'd say keeping all of those normal anchors in place to your family schedule is again really helpful in those teen years because of the availability. It's just you being available if you're providing more opportunities for them to bring something up if they need to.
Hmm.
Um, so so yeah, those would be the
Yeah,
big
those
ones.
are great. Yeah, those are really great thoughts. And then this is going to be like a very broad question because I realize that we can't diagnose every single problem that a child goes through and give a solution right here. But if you were to think about small children and older children, and you were to think about warning signs that they were exhibiting that you think are concerning, what would you be looking for that you think are concernable behaviors, the length of time that those behaviors go on, and then how to then what the next steps should be for a parent?
Yeah, so I would say anything that doesn't feel like your child's normal self, we want to pay attention to. So, if we take depression, for example, a lot of times people assume depression is I'm laying on the couch for days on end and I'm eating this tub of ice cream. But I think with children, it doesn't really play out that way. So we really want to pay attention to if I have an outgoing and gregarious child and all of a sudden they're more withdrawn and subdued, I'm paying attention to that. But the opposite is also true. If I have a more introverted child who's calm and contained and all of a sudden outgoing, we're paying attention to that as well because it's not their normal self and who they normally are. And I would say with depression, it comes and goes. You might have a child be in their room or be down and sullen one night, and then 2 hours later, the neighbor comes over and says, "Do you want to hang out?" And they're happy and they go run out and play with them. And then they come
Mhm.
back home and they're sad again. And so you have to be paying attention to that as a parent. But I would say any change in the normal pattern of behavior, and if it lasts for at least 2 weeks, we're all allowed to have bad days. We're all allowed to have our ups and downs. And so when a child has that here or there, but if you've noticed it consistently every day, constantly for at least 2 weeks, now we're starting to get into a territory of there could be something more going on here. And so I would definitely pay attention to any irritability, sleeplessness. Are they tired a lot? Are you noticing they're not getting good sleep? Um, Anxiety, stress in general, maybe complaints about not wanting to go to school, complaints about their stomach hurting, just not feeling well in general. All of those things, grades, drop in grades, all of those things can be really important signs to something more happening.
Yeah, so just paying attention. And then what would you say would be? It's been 2 weeks and now the next step is, or it's been a month,
I,
and what would you
yeah, I
say?
would try to check in with them and say, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. I'm noticing that it seems like you're more tired lately, or you're not kind of out with the family as much. And I'm not upset about that. I just want to make sure everything's okay. I'm a little worried about you. They'll probably say, I'm fine, leave me alone. And so you might be aware of needing to have the conversation a couple of times before they're willing to listen. So that first time they might brush you off, and then you can wait a day or two and wait until you see it happening in real time. And then you could maybe point it out to them, privately. We don't have to embarrass them in front of the family, but say, hey, just a second ago when you were in the kitchen, you did this. You were like threw your plate kind of in the dishwasher in a really
Mhm.
frustrated sort of way. That's what I was talking about the other day when I brought it up to you. That doesn't seem like you. Is everything okay? What's going on?
Mhm.
And so you can do that a couple of times until they're hopefully willing to talk to you. If they keep putting up that wall, then you might have to eventually make an executive decision and say, hey, I'd really like you to go to someone. I think it's time that we talk to someone because I want to make sure you're getting the help. Again, you're not in trouble. We love you. I don't think you're crazy. We all have
Mhm.
times where we need to speak to someone. So, hey, here's three people that I found online. Will you look at their websites, tell me which person you like the best, right? Include them in that process. Who do you feel comfortable with, based on this information? Ideally, you would find somebody who specializes in working with children or teens or whatever age your child is, so that they can give you some more insights. And
Mhm.
usually, the professional will be really good about spending some time with you as the parent, spending some time with the child, and that way you can figure out your own strategies as a parent of how to be supportive based on whatever that professional might recommend. So, it's always, I would say it's just better to err on the side of caution and get them connected with some support. Even if it's they only have 3 meetings or 3 sessions, that's better to get kind of a pulse and get established with someone so that if something more significant happens down the road where you're really concerned, you can easily get back in with that person, and just sort of have that established place available if you need it.
Yeah, those are great tips.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have a couple more questions. So one is this is more about the family dynamics between spouses and how
Mhm.
they deal with parenting. Any tips on that? And then after that, about people who are single parenting and anything
Mm.
you want to say about that.
Yes. So, between spouses, it's very interesting because we, as spouses, come from very different family experiences. And so when you come together, you have this person that you've chosen to say, I really trust this person and I know they're going to be a great co-parent in my life and they're going to be awesome. But you don't realize until children come along how different your styles of parenting are going to be because again, we just sort of get into this default mode of this is what I grew up with, this is normal, this is how it's always
Mm-hmm.
been. And there are things that are bound to happen that are going to rub up against what you learned as right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a fun example in my own life. So with my husband and I, this is like such an embarrassing story for me, but I'll tell it anyway. um, so I had this habit that I didn't even know was a habit or a problem that I wouldn't always use a cutting board when I needed to cut something, like a piece of fruit on the counter, because that's what my family did apparently growing up. But I was not aware that this was an issue or a thing until we got married. And so he would get really frustrated with me and say, "You're going to ruin our knives. Why don't you use a cutting board?" And and then it wasn't until after I got married that we got back. We were home visiting my parents one day, and then I saw one of my parents cutting something without a cutting board on the counter. I said, "Oh my gosh! Oh, we really do that. I didn't know that was a thing." So, obviously, if it's like something that really, really needs a lot of heavy duty cutting, meat carving or something, we would use a cutting board. But if you're just slicing an apple or something, I mean, so. Um, so anyways, there's little things like that where I think spouses assume, well, when a child says something disrespectful, you should do this. They should go to their room or they should not have TV for a week because that's
Mm-hmm.
how you were raised. Where another person might say, well, it's not a big deal. Let's just have a conversation, explain to
Mm-hmm.
them why that's not okay. And so next thing you know, spouses are in a confrontation and an argument about how do we teach respect? What's the
Mm-hmm.
proper way to do that? And fears about how our child might end up being if we don't enforce these consequences. And so it's really important to, I would say, to evaluate how you were raised, what were the things that your family instilled in you, how did your family discipline you, and what are those parts that you want to keep that you think were important and helpful, and what are the parts that you might want to change, and have a conversation about that as spouses of what's important and what values do we want to have. Sometimes you can't always do that in real time when your kid does something and you have to respond. I think it's okay to make sure you have a conversation later on that evening when everyone's in bed or the next time you have some privacy to say, okay, what do we want to do the next time this comes up?
Mm-hmm.
How can we work on this? For
Yeah.
single parents, it's super challenging. The nice thing is you don't have to run anything by anyone else. You get to decide.
On your
But
own.
Right, you decide on your own, but the challenge is it's all on you all the time. It's super exhausting. You have to be both the fun one and police at the same time. And so how do we do that? And so I would say it's even more important as a single parent to make sure you have that strong emotional bond and emotional connection, because when you do have to make those withdrawals from that emotional bank account of your child and enforce strong consequences and discipline, it's going to be important for them to know that you're not constantly saying no all the time or correcting out of stress or fear or panic, right? Because you're feeling that it's all up to you and putting that pressure on yourself, but feeding them that child emotionally so that they know they can take the hit a little bit more easily when you have to lay down the law, if they know that you're there for them and that friendly confidant and guide and parent figure in their life.
Yeah, all really great information. All right. And then last question I want to ask is just about faith. We've talked mostly about emotional stability in a child's life, but with us being Catholics, how do you see the importance of faith and incorporating that into parenting?
Yeah, so I would say the earlier you can incorporate routines into your child's life, the better. So if you are used to doing a morning prayer devotional time on your own in the morning, keeping that, but maybe letting the kids see you do that, where you're sitting out on the couch instead of doing it in your room. So if they wake up and they come out and you have your prayer journals open, they kind of know, oh, okay, this is a time where we can be praying. Or if you do a rosary, maybe every now and then you include them and say, okay, family rosary time right now. And you can let your 3-year-old run around and not pay attention and be crazy in the background and, swinging
Hmm.
the rosary like a lasso. And but they're hearing the prayers, they're hearing that and absorbing, and again, establishing that this is a normal part of the routine. That's going to be a lot easier in the long run. They're going to be more willing to go along with you to mass if that, again, every Sunday, if it's a part of your normal family life. We like to tack something fun after mass in our family. So we do mass and then we would go downtown and get a mochi donut or something really fun, just to kind of, again, build into it that it's a family experience and it's a happy time. It's not this drudgery of you have to go to mass. How are you? You know, and so I would say that's important. And then as kids get older and as you're able to have those dialogues with them, if they start questioning, why are we doing this? I don't want to go. You can connect that to mental, emotional well-being. Obviously, you can connect to the morality of the situation as well and explaining to them why that's important. And then I also think the community piece is helpful. So ideally, you might have some other families around you who value their faith as well. So they can see other kids their age, maybe, who are also going to mass or also praying the rosary. And so they're not feeling like they're the only weirdos in town that do these weird things, but that there's lots of people in their community that they belong to that also participate in these rituals, can really go a long way as well. But I would say the more that it's associated with positivity, affection, right? Maybe we're cuddling while we're doing our family prayer time, anything to make it a happy experience is going to help them value that time with you as well.
Right. And it's not going to become something that then later on, because they were forced to do it and you had to do it, and this is what Jesus wanted. If it's
Hmm.
forced like that, there's a lot of resentment that can build in somebody when anybody's forced to do anything. So creating very
Right.
positive experiences surrounding faith is really important.
Yeah, because there's so many families that I've worked with where, as parents get panicked, right? Like, I have to teach the
Hmm.
faith, so we have to go to mass. You have to, and that is important, right? We want them to be exposed to mass and to hear scriptures read and all hear those teachings. But at the same time, you have to be very careful because you might have a child who is from the outside appearing as if they're doing everything right. So they're complying with you and they're showing up in mass, but their mind and their heart aren't present, right? Because it's been done in a very harsh and controlling way. And so we have to pay attention to how do we make sure their mind and their heart are also in the experience.
Hmm.
And that has to do with how, like you mentioned, that forcefulness, where do we draw that line of the tone around inviting them to participate, and why is this a beautiful experience, and so helping to hopefully facilitate that. It can't be perfect all the time, but thinking about the difference between, okay, I have their body is here, but their mind and their heart aren't here.
Hmm.
So I look good to all the other families in the church because my kid is here, but are they going to be someone who turns into someone who is still living their faith once they turn 18 and are away at college? I don't know. Hopefully that's the case. And so we want that to be something they internalize for themselves at some point and aren't just feeling like they're doing it out of obligation to you. We want them to transfer that ownership to themselves at some point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Absolutely. And making that experience be positive and also an expression of their own free will, that they're participating in it not out of duty or fear, but out
Yes.
of their own choice. Like, I love this, I'm coming to love it or start to embrace it on my own.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. Excuse me. All right, ma'am. So, anything else you want to share before just where people can find your work personally? I don't know if you're offering counseling services to people like telehealth or anything like that. So that's one question. And then also, if parents are they think that their child is in need of therapy, where could they look for reputable sources?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll just add the caveat that I know it's really easy to sit here and to give all this parenting advice and
Mhm.
stand up on my pedestal, but I just want to acknowledge that parenting is the most challenging thing to do in the world. And it's one thing to give advice, it's another thing to be living in the trenches day to day. And so you are not alone in that experience. I think every parent feels stretched to their max,
Mhm.
and you are probably doing a much better job than it feels like you're doing.
Mhm.
But if you feel like you are out of your depth, absolutely, you want to reach out to a therapist in your area. And so there's lots of ways you can do that. The internet is a great way nowadays where you can just search therapists near me and you're probably going to find people. But if you want to find somebody from a faith background, I would recommend reaching out to your local parish. A lot of churches have Catholic therapists that they have relationships with and have come to know and trust. And so asking if they have a list of recommendations is a great place to start. If they don't have that resource, there's a website called catholictherapists.com where you can search with your zip code.
Mhm.
So that's an option as well. And yes, we are accepting clients throughout the state of Florida for now. Hopefully by fall that will change. There's some new laws passing where we're going to be allowed to
Mm.
cross state lines very, very soon in fall of 2025. But telehealth and in person here in Orlando, Florida, you're more than welcome to reach out. So
Awesome. Well, thank you. And the
yeah.
website, did you say the website?
Yes, heart space, as in your heart. Heartspacetherapycenter.com.
.com. Okay. And then
Yes.
social media, are you on any social media that people can find
Yes,
you?
we're on Instagram at Healing with Heart Space and Facebook, Regina Boyd, LMHC.
Awesome. All right, friend. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom and your expertise as well. And to my audience, if you do have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. I hope you have a wonderful morning, day, or night, wherever you are in the world. And God bless you. Bye bye.